How to write subject lines that generate B2B leads. Your subject line is competing with the inbox, not other vendors. If you're leading B2B outbound, you're not really battling competitors, you're battling attention. Executives are flooded with internal threads, vendor pitches, newsletters, meeting invites, and FYIs, so your cold email gets a fraction of a second while they scan. In that moment, the subject line is often the only thing that determines whether your message lives or dies. The data backs up what every SDR manager feels. 47% of recipients say they open emails based on the subject line alone. That means this single line can be the fastest lever you have to increase visibility, replies, and meetings without changing your list size or sending volume. At SalesHive, we treat subject lines like paid ad headlines for meetings, short, specific, and built to earn the next micro commitment, the open. If you run an outsourced sales team, an in-house pod, or partner with a B2B sales agency, the goal is the same: subject lines that reliably turn cold outreach into real conversations. Why subject lines gate your entire outbound funnel? Outbound is a simple sequence. Deliverability gets you into the inbox, subject lines earn the open, body copy earns the read, and the call to action earns the reply and meeting. If your open rate is weak, most of your best positioning and proof never gets seen. That's why a modest lift in open rate compounds into a bigger lift in pipeline. Benchmarks are a useful reality check. Average B2B email open rate sits around 15.14%, and cold email campaigns often land around 22 to 24%, while top performers can push far higher when targeting and subject lines align. Even more telling, 32.72% of recipients say the subject line is the single most important factor in deciding to open, slightly ahead of the sender name. One practical note: privacy features can make opens noisier than they used to be, so we don't treat open rate as a truth metric. We use it as a directional signal for comparing variance, while judging real winners by replies and meetings per 100 sends, especially for outbound sales agency campaigns where meetings are the only KPI that matters. The four-part formula behind high-performing B2B subject lines. The best subject lines aren't clever, they're engineered. In our experience running cold outreach at scale, winning subject lines consistently combine four elements: relevance, it's clearly about the prospect; clarity, it's instantly understood; curiosity, it creates a small information gap; and credibility, it doesn't sound like hype. When one of these is missing, performance usually drops fast. Relevance is the foundation. A good subject line points to a priority your ICP already cares about: pipeline coverage, SDR productivity, demo volume, churn, hiring, or a trigger event like funding or leadership changes. A common mistake is leading with your product category, AI platform, end-to-end solution, instead of leading with the prospect's outcome or workflow. Credibility is the guardrail. Buyers have strong spam filters in their heads, not just in their email clients, so language that sounds like clickbait, limited time, guaranteed, act now, can hurt opens and replies. In B2B, plain language plus specificity beats hype almost every time, especially when you're asking a stranger for a meeting. Personalization that actually scales without sounding creepy. Personalization is the highest ROI upgrade you can make to subject lines, and it doesn't require writing a novel. In a large B2B study, personalized subject lines drove a 46% open rate versus 35% without personalization. That's a meaningful lift from a lightweight change, and it's why we treat personalization as non-negotiable for serious cold email agency work. The key is to personalize with relevance, not flattery. Use simple variables, first name, company name, only when they support a clear context. a hiring plan, a tech stack, a recent initiative, a geographic expansion, or a specific operational pain. The subject line should feel like it was written because you know their world, not because you scraped their LinkedIn profile. This is where process and tooling matter. At SalesHive, we combine list-building services with structured research to capture the right fields, then use our systems to turn that data into subject line patterns that feel one-to-one while still scaling across thousands of contacts. The operational goal is consistency. Every rep should have personalization guardrails, so your outbound doesn't depend on who had extra time that day. Treat your subject line like ad copy for a meeting. One clear promise, one believable detail, and just enough curiosity to earn the open. Mechanics that move open rates: length, numbers, and questions. Most teams overthink creativity and underthink mechanics. Subject lines between 6 to 10 words tend to perform best, and top performers commonly land around 43.85 characters, short enough to scan on mobile, long enough to include a concrete idea. The best practice is simple: one message, one outcome, and no extra filler. Numbers can work when they're specific and defensible. Research has shown subject lines that include numbers can deliver up to 45% higher open rates, largely because they signal "this is concrete" instead of "this is marketing." The mistake to avoid is using numbers as bait. If you promise 17% lift in the subject line, the email has to support it quickly and clearly. Questions are another reliable lever in B2B because they match how buyers think. They're already asking, "Is this relevant to me?" A question subject line works best when it's anchored to a real initiative. Are you changing SDR territories for 2026? Rather than a vague prompt. Quick question. Keep the question crisp and make sure the first sentence of the email answers why you asked it. Common mistakes that quietly kill deliverability and replies. The biggest subject line killer is vagueness. Checking in, quick intro, and following up might feel safe, but they communicate zero relevance and get ignored, especially in enterprise inboxes where every open is a choice. If you can't explain the "why you, why now" in the subject line, it's usually a sign your targeting or offer needs tightening. The second mistake is over-optimizing for opens while breaking trust. Clickbait can earn the open once, but it suppresses replies because the body doesn't match the promise, and it can train prospects to ignore you in the future. We'd rather see a slightly lower open rate with higher replies and meetings because that's what creates pipeline for your SDR agency or internal sales development agency team. The third mistake is inconsistent execution across reps and channels. If your email subject lines are thoughtful, but your follow-up cadence is chaotic, or your cold calling team uses a totally different value prop, performance gets noisy. The best outbound sales agency motions align the first touch, follow-ups, and even B2B cold calling services around the same core problem and proof. Turn subject lines into a testing system, not a guessing game. Testing subject lines isn't nice to have, it's revenue work. When teams systematically A/B test subject lines, they commonly find incremental lifts that compound over time, because more opens create more reads, and more reads create more replies. The key is discipline. Test one variable at a time: question versus statement, number versus no number, trigger-based versus outcome-based, and keep everything else stable. We recommend measuring subject lines with a scorecard that goes beyond opens. Opens are useful for directional comparison, but replies and meetings booked per 100 sends are the metrics that prevent false winners. This is especially important in sales outsourcing models where your goal is predictable meetings, not vanity engagement. Operationally, build a small library of proven patterns per ICP, then enforce it through coaching and QA. The fastest way to improve team-wide performance is to standardize what works, retire what doesn't, and make it easier for reps to execute than to improvise. That's how you go from a few good reps to a repeatable outbound engine you can scale when you hire SDRs or expand an outsourced SDR pod. What to do next? Build a repeatable outbound engine that earns meetings. If you want immediate impact, start by tightening the inputs: a clean ICP, a credible offer, and a short list of subject line templates that map to real buyer priorities.
Then, run controlled tests weekly, keep the winners, and document the patterns so your team isn't reinventing the wheel every quarter. This approach works whether you run outbound in-house or partner with cold calling companies and a cold email agency to accelerate execution. At SalesHive, we booked 100,000 plus meetings for 1,500 plus clients since 2016 by treating details like subject lines as a core operating system, not a creative afterthought. Our teams support full funnel outbound, including list building, cold email, LinkedIn outreach services, and cold calling services, so the message stays consistent from inbox to live conversation. If you're evaluating an SDR agency, an outbound sales agency, or a broader B2B sales outsourcing partner, look for two things: a repeatable testing cadence and proof they can operationalize what they learn across the whole team. Great subject lines are not a one-off hack. They're a durable advantage when you treat them like performance copy and manage them with the same rigor as any other revenue lever.